Welcome to the Life Is podcast, where creativity, culture, mindset, and intentional living come together through real conversation. I'm your host, Corey Brown. Each week, I sit down with entrepreneurs, artists, athletes, travelers, and visionaries who didn't stumble into a life they love, they built it. We go deep into how they think, how they reconstructed themselves, and what became possible on the other side. This is not just about what people have accomplished. It's about the internal work that made it sustainable. Because when you build from the inside out, life expands. Let's get into it. I met this week's guest in Bali. And if you know anything about the kind of people who end up in Bali, intentionally and not accidentally, you already have a sense of who she is. Monica Neal is a healthcare executive, a certified ontological coach, and someone who has completed her MBA in 2022 in the middle of a global pandemic, not because the timing was right, but because she understood the most important investment she can make was in how she led herself. She has spent over a decade in healthcare leadership, opened a rehab hospital from scratch, led teams through COVID, and is now one step from the CEO's seat, having entered her institution's executive development program, while simultaneously navigating one of the more demanding personal seasons of her life. What I found most striking about Monica when we met, and what this conversation will make clear, is that she does not study just how leaders change. She is living it in real time with full transparency and without apology. Here's what that looks like. All right, well, hey, good afternoon. We have another episode of the Life Is podcast hosted by myself. And this week we have another phenomenal guest. We have Monica Neal, who is an ontological coach, healthcare executive, But more importantly, excited to have you, Monica, just because of the wealth of knowledge, your experience. And for those who are listening, I hope you do pay attention because what she's going to share is in depth. It's complex, but it's very directed and it's very valuable to having a life that is. So, Monica, welcome to the show, and it is great to see you. You look good, like I said. You're put together. But yeah, good to have you. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. It's been such a long time since we've actually seen each other. Um, so yeah, I'm excited to
Yeah,
dive in. This is my first podcast, so
well, good.
here we go.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. And honestly, too, yeah, for the listeners who are listening, or we'll see this on YouTube. Me and Monica actually met, which is crazy, 8 years ago in Bali, 2018. So of all places, we met there, and I don't even know how we met specifically. Like, I know there was a strip and there was some, we were on the same street. And ironically, I have you in my video, one of the videos I took, but we ended up meeting at a bar there. And of all places, Bali. And, now 8 years later, here we are. So
Yeah.
very unique interaction, but, it's great to see you absolutely after all these years.
Yes, I remember the exact details of our meeting. We were on we it was really, really hot, like super, super hot.
Yes.
So me
Yes.
and the person that I was with said, let's pop into a restaurant, grab a drink. We saw a pool table in the back of the restaurant, and then you and your partner
Yep.
came over and we all shot a game of pool, like just four randos playing billiards in another country.
I know, which is wild, but that's the beauty of it. You meet people from different areas and you stay connected over the time, and it's just, yeah, so it's wild. And I appreciate you feeling the story because I was, blanking out on it. But yeah, of all places, Bali, pool table, and a couple drinks in between. So good time. Well, hey, we'll kind of get started here, and really for our listeners, just kind of ease into it if you can, right? For those who are listening, who are just meeting you, Monica, can you kind of tell me, who you are, what you do in the world right now, and then really kind of what brought you up to this point in your life.
Sure. So my name is Monica Neal. I am a small town southern Louisiana girl who had big dreams.
Mm-hmm.
I originally thought I wanted to be a journalist and travel the world capturing
Ooh,
stories in foreign countries.
yes.
But after seeing some family members navigate some serious health issues, I thought healthcare might be a good choice instead. So I
Mm-hmm.
went to LSU, go Tigers,
Right.
then ended up at the Allied Health Extension School of Harvard University in Boston for physical therapy school. And then, because why not, I moved to New York City. I figured if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere.
Yep. Good motto.
That path led me into healthcare leadership, where I was able to build and scale rehab programs, began to mentor some teams, and then was able to actually be where I am now, co opening a new build hospital, which is an experience, and
Yeah.
investing in my own development along the way, getting my MBA during COVID. and becoming an ontological coach, which we'll talk about later.
Hmm.
Right now, though, I'm hopefully stepping into my first CEO role through a development program, which is really exciting and definitely a stretch.
Yes.
And I think a lot of my journey has been about curiosity, leaning into challenges, and learning how to show up completely, even when the timing isn't perfect.
Hmm.
And some of that perspective even came from my trip to Bali, which we just spoke about, but
Yeah.
and meeting amazing people that you stick with forever.
Yeah. Well, awesome. I appreciate you giving really the whole encapsulation of like, where you're at now and how that really got there. Right. And that really kind of leads us to our next question because talking about your trajectory into your field, I feel like, and once again, we spoke offline, like everything you've done is, of course, helped you to where you're at now. It's almost like it was just another layer stacked on another to improve, right, refine, and get better overall. But if you can kind of take me back to like your healthcare career, right? And I always say like kind of take me to like the real version, not the resume version that we all live in, right? Kind of LinkedIn world. You briefly kind of just touched on it now, but what kind of drew you into this field? And what did you think it was going to be, versus what you actually discovered when you got into it?
Yes. So I grew up in Louisiana in a military family. Both my
Mhm.
parents were entrepreneurs. So from early on, I was exposed to discipline, but also the idea of building something yourself and then taking ownership of that work.
Yes.
The moment that healthcare became personal for me was when I was a teenager. My niece, who we are about a year apart in age, was diagnosed with lupus. And watching her move through the healthcare system in the 90s
Yeah. Yeah.
as a teenager in high school gave me a very close view of how complex it can be for people in the system and also their families. I had originally thought about becoming a doctor, but what stood out to me during that time was how much the recovery and quality of life happens outside of the exam room. That's
Hmm.
what led me to physical therapy. I wanted to help people regain their independence and their function. And my niece, when we were in high school, she was in a wheelchair, and that's devastating for a
Oh,
teenager.
geez. Yeah. Mm.
And she's a physical therapist now too, so that changed her life as well. And she is, managing that disease very, very well. But early in my career, I also realized something else, that the outcomes that people have aren't just about the individualized clinician. They're
Mm.
about the systems around them. So the teams of people that, work for every single patient, the different workflows that happen within the buildings that you're in, and the culture. And I know culture can be a buzzword,
Yes.
but it really does, everything trickles from that. And so that realization is really what pulled me into leadership, which happened when I was in Dallas. And I saw that improving those systems could
Yeah.
impact far more patients than I ever could by myself. And that journey has led me all the way through the different jobs that I've had in management and leadership, and hopefully soon CEO.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I definitely, yeah, we definitely want to get the CEO. So we're giving you some good luck there. And just hearing that, it sounds like, right, you've seen a gap, you've seen the parts to the whole, right, compartmentalizing this whole process, this system, and then wanting to make this, right, cohesively better for the end user. Obviously, in this case, it was your niece, and putting that all together, which is awesome because you're seeing it firsthand. Like, here's the gaps, here's where I can improve it, and having a drive to like, hey, I want to make this better for
Yeah.
everyone involved. Um, Kind of moving forward too, your career obviously has moved through progressively larger and more complex leadership roles, which we're going to get to later. Of course, from my clinical work that you'll talk about, and then building an entire rehab hospital from scratch to where you're at now. Looking back at that like trajectory, was there a specific moment where you continuously, or not continuously, but consciously shifted from being someone doing the work, right, to being someone building the conditions for others to do their best work? That makes sense.
Yes. So I think that shift happened gradually. I
Mhm.
first started managing a team in Dallas. I was surrounded by incredibly talented clinicians who genuinely wanted to do great work for their patients, which I think,
Yes.
most people in healthcare, they go into it because they love it and they want to change lives. But
Correct.
I also saw how often the systems got in their way. Things like the workflow that didn't flow, the communication gaps. What's the biggest thing
Yeah.
on surveys, especially in healthcare? It's always communication. Like it comes up
Yeah.
every single time, no matter what kind of bullet you throw at it. It still becomes the biggest thing where people say this needs to be better.
Yes.
And then resource constraints. What I have learned about healthcare is the only constant is change, and we are
Hmm.
constantly being asked to do more with less. And so you have to be creative, but there are times where you wonder, I don't know, I need other
Yes.
opinions on this. So
Yep.
that was the moment that I realized my role wasn't to be the best clinician in the room. My role was to build an environment where the entire team could be successful. Because when the systems are right, when you have the staffing, which is also, never
Mhm.
perfect, when you have the best communication possible, and when you have processes, which I think AI is going to be huge in healthcare,
Agree.
good clinicians can do their best work. And so that's when I started to change my thinking of how do I do this well to how can I help design the system so everybody can do it well. I
Yes.
saw that play out in New Orleans. I'm from about an hour south of New Orleans. When I helped implement an early mobility program in our intensive care unit,
Yep.
our goal was to get patients off of the ventilator faster, get them out of the ICU faster. That saves the hospital money. That has
Hmm.
the patient have better outcomes faster, all those things. And this reinforced for me how powerful system level changes can be when people come together.
Yeah.
It was a win-win. So it was a project that after being I spoke at the National Nursing Symposium conference. I forget what it was called, but it
Right.
was in New Orleans that year. And we presented our data that all the other hospitals within the system that I worked with started to implement pieces of this. And that was exciting to say, what we did is
It's,
it's being
it's
seen and
working.
it's
Yeah. Yeah.
working.
Yeah. I think it's a huge conviction piece too. To see, like you said, you put that work in, and I think too from healthcare. I don't know. You could probably fill me in. I don't know how. I'm assuming they probably move slow when you implement anything new, like construction or law. It's like it's going to take forever to get implemented, and I think seeing that change, like, hey, this actually works, is like huge confidence and like it's working, like you said. Um, and it's also just like making that small change and seeing the massive difference of like, look, we can make this small tweaks and here's a massive or, you know, quantitative difference that we can actually track and it's proven, right? So that's also important I think to kind of highlight as you're talking about what you did in that program. I actually want to talk about what you're already kind of into. You opened up, say, a rehab hospital from ground up, which is amazing and probably crazy and scary. You hired an entire right therapy team, and you built a culture, which you just talked about. Built a culture from before the building was finished. Led a joint commission certification. All of this, right, which is a wild experience, but great experience. Um, and to your point, most leaders inherit systems, but you actually created it. Like this was something you created, right? So what did like building something from nothing, right, teach you that you could not have learned in any other way?
Yes, it was quite a journey.
Yes.
Opening a hospital from scratch is one of the most intense leadership experiences I believe you can have because everything has to be built at the same time. You have to build your team,
Mhm.
you have to build the workflows, you've got to establish what your culture is going to be, and then you have to make sure that the regulatory infrastructure is there because
Right.
that's important. And I have to say I definitely didn't do this alone. We had a very strong CEO who led our leadership team through that process. And it
Right.
was a truly collaborative effort across all departments, which it has to be, right? Like you can't
Mhm.
build an island on your own.
Yep.
But being part of that team gave me the opportunity to see how a hospital is built from the executive level and how everything has to come together at once. So my role was building the therapy department. So I
Yes.
recruited and developed the therapy team, all the physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech language pathologists, our rehab techs. creating the workflows for patient care, how they were going to be scheduled, how we were going to use the electronic medical record system that we were given, and then preparing for accreditation where they come in and they audit everything that you do to say, like, are you doing it the right way? At the
Yeah.
same time, we were also trying to grow our census and have patients come into the building because that's the whole reason that we're there and make the hospital financially sustainable. So, it's just sort of a boom of everything. And it was my first job in a freestanding rehab hospital. So I've worked in outpatient clinics, I've worked in sports medicine, I've worked in acute care hospitals, where they have an emergency room. But this was the first time I was in a rehab hospital where patients stay there 10 to 12 days. They live there, get therapy, and the goal is that they go home.
Yes.
Um, so, what that experience taught me is that culture and systems have to be intentional from day one. And when you're hiring a
Yes.
team and building processes at the same time, every decision shapes the foundation of the organization. So if you get that foundation right, the hospital can grow quickly. And within about 9 months, we were able to achieve a positive net financial outcome, which I've learned recently,
Wow.
actually a little slow. Like they want it done at about 6 months,
Really? 9 months seems like it's crazy fast.
right?
Jeez. Well, like I said, when you were mentioning all the things you had to do, I'm like, man, me being a listener myself, I'm like, that in itself was so much to handle at one time. Like you had this tornado of all this, you know, admin stuff and other stuff you had to do, real interviews with people and setting up systems to your point of making sure the beginning is right. Because I feel like, yeah, if you have the right load bearing system or sequence, everything from there just scales easily, right? Going forward. Of course, you have your growing pains. You're going to have that. We're dealing with people, and obviously in your field, regulatory stuff. But yeah, it's important, right? Having that leadership and that culture, as much as it's maybe cliche, it's like that is um, I don't know, you could say maybe the secret sauce, if you will, but it's the X factor of
Yes,
like actually making this a reality and sustainable, right? To go forward. Speaking of that, because you didn't do it alone, right? And you kind of passed the torch going back, right? Because you also mentioned you mentored your own successors before transitioning out of that. And we live in a world where it's kind of dog eat dog world, and most people want to protect their seat or kind of guardrail it. You built people into yours, right? My question, I guess, for that is like, where does that come from, and what does it say maybe about you or how you think about your own value as a leader, helping those folks.
sure. I think that's one of the things that defines how I've led over the years. It definitely started out clunky. You learn as you go. No one teaches you how
Right.
to do this. But I don't see leadership as holding a seat. I see it as building the conditions for others to do
Yep.
their best work. Because if people don't follow you, then are you really a leader, right?
Exactly.
When
Exactly.
I step into any new role, my goal is to make sure that I leave the team stronger than when I arrived.
Mm-hmm.
I won't say that I've been successful at that every single time, but that's my goal.
For sure.
Um,
Yeah.
that
Intention.
means mentoring successors, investing in people, even if it might make my own position less central. Um, so for
Yep.
me, the value of leadership isn't necessarily in holding the title, it's leaving things better than I found them. So doing that requires a certain kind of
Yep.
internal security, right? So you have to
Yes.
trust that your worth isn't defined by your current role and that by helping someone else step up, you actually multiply the success of the organization. And so that's the principle that I've been applying for many, many years. And when I was in New Orleans, I was able to do this. I spent time mentoring my lead physical therapist at the time so that he could step into the position confidently. It's interesting because when I got my position in this particular community hospital,
Mm-hmm.
had applied for my position, but he was
Mm.
green, but we knew he wanted it. So I
Correct.
called him in really early on and said, "Hey, I'm going to help you. If you want this job, I'm going to help you get it." And it took
Correct.
4 years. I was there about 4 years. And when I left, he was put into my position. And, after the fact, hearing about him thrive and learning that he stepped into it seamlessly because he embraced the coaching and the mentoring.
Yes. Embodied it.
It it really it just made me smile because,
That's it.
you got what you wanted. It took you some
Yeah.
years, patient, but you did it.
Yeah, that feels good, right? You had a, impact on that, on his journey to get to where you're at. You said 2 things that were, like, spot on. I'm kinda losing my thought, but I think it was, essentially have your own self-worth, know who you are, and letting know that your self-worth is not defined by your productivity or your job title. I think a lot of us, myself included, at times get caught in that. Um, we feel we live in this world of, like, capitalism, so we, like, what you do, your output, quote, unquote, "defines you," and I think it's important that you recognize that doesn't. And then also saying, "Hey, let me lend a hand to somebody," because like you said, if I'm able to do that, it's not all about me. I'm gonna multiply the value of this system or my the hospital, but also myself, right? I become more resourceful, more impactful from a leadership standpoint, than
Mhm.
just saying, "Hey, I'm gonna keep to myself." So, like, those 2 are, like, perfect that you identified those in that role, in your job. Real quick, if you're an executive, a founder, or running a team in a high stress industry like healthcare, you know how most management training doesn't stick. Monica doesn't just coach individuals, she helps organizations build cultures that thrive under pressure. If your leadership team needs the tools to navigate massive transition and shift accountability for real, bring Monica into your organization. Head to the link in the show notes, connect with her directly, and mention code LifeIsPod10 to see how she can support your team. So I want to jump a little bit forward. Well, maybe jump a little back. I'm going to go back to our story in Bali. Um, but of course, as I said earlier, we met in Bali, and I think anyone who spends time there understands Bali is it does something to you. It's beautiful, beautiful place, um, and for most people, it's not a passive destination. Um, it definitely asks something of you, and I think a lot of people go there for reasons, all of myriad of reasons. What brought you there? What did that trip actually, do for you internally when you visited?
Yeah, so the Bali trip actually started because I knew someone who owned a yoga studio in Dallas where I was
Yes.
taking classes. And she did something that I think many of us secretly dream of. She bought a villa in Bali and opened it
Yes.
up for yoga retreats. Very eat, pray, love.
Yeah. Yeah. Very much.
And so I think knowing I'd have a familiar face in a foreign country gave me the courage to take the leap and
Yeah.
the 17-hour flight. And I spent an amazing 16 days there. It's actually the second longest vacation I've ever taken. It's like if you're going to go across the world, you need to stay, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And that's how you and I met. I mean, as I
Yes.
said earlier, I ducked into a restaurant to escape the heat, grabbed a drink. There was a pool table. One of my favorite things to do is to shoot pool. And you and your partner ended up joining us for a game. And the rest is history. It's crazy how the internet and social media can keep people connected when we've only met in person that one time.
No, I know. Well, it is.
For like a couple of hours, right? And so beyond the fun, Bali itself does do something to you. The
Yep.
pace, the culture, the environment, it slows you down and forces you to observe yourself. And for me,
Mhm.
that became a mirror because I'm not someone who's slow. I'm very fast, very type A, very go, 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 like feel guilty when I don't do something on a Sunday afternoon.
Right. Right.
So seeing how different things how different they were there, the traditions, the culture that I never knew anything about, I would never have really known until you experience it. It reiterated to me how much we think we know and yet how much we
Mhm.
don't know of what is happening all around us in other parts of the world. And
Yep.
so that trip reinforced something I already believe, but I'd not really fully practiced, that growth doesn't just happen in a classroom or an office. It helps when you have the courage and the faith to step out of your usual context and give yourself space to just
Mhm.
recalibrate. And I needed real space to figure out who I wanted to be next. And in
Mm.
that process, it led to a connection that we both treasure today.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, that's really good. To what you said, like, just the educational piece, really resonates to get out of the classroom or, wherever you're at to actually gain real experience, get outside that comfort zone that we all know of, but then at the same time, slow down to actually analyze and embody and be aware of what is really actually there and what you actually need. So that self-awareness, and then I don't know, what is the slowing, what is the saying? I think, go slow to go fast or something like that. I might be butchering that for someone who's listening, but essentially to your point, right? Like you're slowing down to go faster, and that's to figure out what you want to do in the future at
Mhm.
that point. And then, very much, yeah, we have a great friendship here that has led us to this moment. Um, on top of that, right, as you look at Bali, you know, you and your development and what you kind of got into now, very much when we met, and even now, you're very someone who, you know, is very introspective, and you even talked about on offline that you're very much someone who watches their own experiment, right? Kind of your movement in your world as much as, you know, moving through it at the same time. Speaking of that, when did you develop that capacity for like self observation, and what has that cost you, and what has that given you throughout your life?
I think I started developing that capacity early in bits and pieces.
Hmm.
Growing up in a military family, you're always noticing. You're paying attention to how people respond, what
Yep.
dynamics are at play. And then in my early clinical work, observing patients was my job. So it became second nature
Yeah.
to watch people and how they move. And you had to really notice those subtle changes to guide them effectively. I say even today, when I see people walk, the first thing I look at is their posture.
Right, analyzing.
But self observation as a leadership practice really deepened when I faced more complex challenges like opening a new hospital,
Yes.
leading a team of 85 people, or stepping into the CEO candidacy while also managing some pretty crazy personal transitions in my life in 2025 and 2026. And there is a cost to it. It takes energy, it's uncomfortable, and you see patterns in yourself that you might not like.
Mm, yes,
But
that's the truth.
right? But the gift is enormous. It gives you clarity. It helped me separate what I can control from what I can't,
Yep.
and allowed me to respond more thoughtfully rather than reactively. It's the foundation that I also have for coaching. So when I can observe myself, which it's not easy to do, but when you can take the time to say, hey, I'm willing to pull back the curtain and see what am I doing? What are my
Yep.
patterns? Um, when I can observe myself better, I can help others see their patterns and take ownership of their growth because I'm going first.
Mhm.
That capacity has shaped both the leader and the person that I am today. I truly believe that that work changed my life and how I see life,
Yeah.
see what life is.
Right,
And
like yeah.
travel like my trip to Bali, and I also went to Ireland, and I also went to Australia, accelerated this. Being out of my usual environment forced me to watch my own responses to new environments, new challenges,
Yeah.
notice what I was carrying, and then say, how do I recalibrate? And at that point, and at this point,
Mhm.
self observation is how I move through the world, as uncomfortable as it is sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, very much, clarity and fragmentation. Like, clarity of, like, it sounds like you got all this clutter out the way, it got clear, but even then, the self-observation, almost like the mirror effect to your point is like, "Okay, where are my fragmentations? Where am I failing, quote, unquote, or my inefficiencies?" Because we all have them. Like you said, when we want to look at what we're doing wrong, and being honest, right? Like, where are those inefficiencies in my process, and then how do I get better, right? Being that exhibit A for my clients, which we'll talk about on your coaching perspective and just your um, own field now. I was also curious too, kind of offline. Were you always, I guess, were you always open to traveling, or is that?
Yeah, I think I was because my dad always talked about traveling. He came back to a small town in Louisiana where he met my mom, but
Yeah,
he finished high school. He joined the military and just jetted off. He was, in some really interesting places. Sometimes
yeah,
when I look back at his photos, my favorite photo of him actually, which is going to sound a little cryptic, but he's clearly in somewhere like the Amazonian rainforest or
yeah.
something,
That's
and
some crazy.
he's got he's holding two skull heads in his hands. And I just thought to myself, like, God, I wish I could know more about that story, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And he instilled in me from a very early age, get out and make your own way. And that just is that's how I grew up. So yeah, as soon as I could get out of Louisiana, I did.
Yeah. And I was just curious. You said get out of your norm. So I'm like, hey, I wonder if like, were you always open to traveling or wanting to, get out of your norm, right? Kind of see the world from a different perspective. So I was just curious.
Yeah, I think just being from a and it's not really a small town anymore, but in my mind at the time, I felt like I was from a very small town, and I just thought there's gotta be more to life than this, and I wanna
Hmm.
experience it. Didn't know how that was gonna happen, but there was just something in me that said I was gonna do it. I was gonna figure
Yeah.
out how to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking of your career, right? A lot of people, in high achieving professional, lives keep their external and their internal separate, right? More like the career stays over there and the internal work stays here, right? Very much separated. You talked about really both these collapsing and really into one silo. These two things being one. Was that kind of a deliberate decision on your end, or did that just kind of happen naturally?
I think it was a little bit of both, a natural tendency and then a conscious choice.
Yes.
I didn't set out to really collapse anything. It kind of just happened. I've always been the type of person who I notice my surroundings, maybe too much
Hmm.
sometimes, maybe on high alert a lot.
Yeah.
Again, growing up in a military family and around entrepreneurial parents who both worked for themselves, having very successful businesses in their lives. I was always watching and trying to figure out
Mhm.
not just what people were doing, but why. I was like, why do you work for yourself? Why do you not work for a company? So that habit of just paying attention kind of stuck. So when I got into leadership, I realized pretty quickly that you can't I claim that you can't leave who you are at the door. When
Yeah.
people like leave yourself and then when you go into work, I think you bring that person with you. So if I
Hmm.
was stressed or distracted or not really present, it showed up
Oh
despite
yeah.
me leaving it at the door, right? And it affected everything around me. So slowly, almost by necessity, my internal work and my external work started to live in the same space.
Yeah.
It's not perfect. Sometimes it's very messy. I still catch myself reacting instead of responding or
Mhm.
overthinking things I probably shouldn't. But over time, I've learned that when I bring my whole self, my curiosity, my reflection, just my humanity, we're all
Yeah, for
together
sure.
as human beings into the work, it does change things. And it changes how I lead day to day. It changes how people trust me or don't trust me. And I think just showing up authentically, it makes a difference. And I think everyone wants to do that, but I question, do we actually do that?
Yeah. Yep. Putting theory to actual reality. Um, you said curious. I think that's been a key factor throughout your whole process is being curious. And I think too, with to your point about like, workspace and, we hear like leave your emotions at the door, which I think is hard. I think it dismisses you as a human being because we are emotions, right? So I understand from the context perspective that, work is work, but to your point, you bring it with you. We may try to mask or bottle it, but I think to your kind of paraphrasing, it's like when you slow down and give yourself the opportunity to breathe, to assess, um, you can kind of get those little moments of insight to readjust, recalibrate to what you're saying, kind of recalibrate to then move forward, whether it's a meeting or leading someone, you can kind of not be reactionary, kind of more in a proactive seat. So everything you said there was, like I said, once again, just spot on. And you talked about your coaching because that's actually where I want to go next is your MBA certification and just the why, right? I think we both resonate on human potential, human reasoning, why we do what we do, what leads us there, right? So we're going to dive into that and really just the decision to go deeper. Um, so you talked about right earlier getting your MBA in 2022. I think it was a year, and you got your ontological coaching. That always trips me up. But you got your coaching certification, right? Both during and coming out of COVID. While honestly, most of I would say your career, most of the world was in stress and survival mode at that time. Um, you were actually building, right? Kind of going. They were zigging, you were zagging. What was driving that in that chaotic, COVID post-COVID moment?
Yeah. Honestly, I'll say a lot of people thought I was a little crazy for signing up for both an MBA and finishing a coaching certification at the start and during COVID.
Hmm.
And maybe I was a little crazy, but for me, it wasn't about titles or credentials. It was about making sure that when the world demanded everything from me, especially
Yes.
being in healthcare, in an intensive care unit during that time, that I could actually show up fully. Like I didn't want to show up halfway.
Mm,
So COVID was an incredibly difficult time for everyone, but for
right.
healthcare workers, it was a whole different ball game. We were facing uncertainty, risk.
Yeah.
Every time we went into a patient room, there was risk. There was exhaustion on a daily basis. I mean, we all picked up extra shifts. And I knew that if I wanted to lead effectively, because I was leading a team at that time and not
Hmm.
just surviving, which is what I did see a lot of people, doing, which rightly
Yeah.
so, that's we were just holding on. I needed tools for both the operational and the human sides of leadership. So the MBA gave me frameworks for the finance, the operations, the strategy, leading at a higher level. But the coaching certification was another kind of challenge. It was 15 months of deep self reflection, pulling back the curtain, working through exercises that made me notice, what assumptions do I have? What
Mm.
stories do I have? What habits do I have?
Yep. Yep.
How am I reacting on automatic? And it was humbling because you really have to see, what are my automatics? And we all have them. It's not, right or wrong, good or bad, but it's noticing what they are and deciding, do they work for me or do they not work for me? And if they don't work for me, then I can change it.
Yep. You have the power.
One exercise during the coaching program that really stands out to me was I had to have a really difficult conversation with my boss at the time. And I had to actually document what my responses were in the moment.
Mm.
And I had to
Yep.
decide, was the battle I was fighting worth it over my relationship with my boss? Like, do I want to be right or do I want to be happy? Right.
Yes.
And that moment crystallized the coaching principles for me. I just learned that awareness gives you choice. And then I could respond from fear or ego, or I could respond from presence and clarity. There's that word again, right?
Yep.
And I think it's all about that we have choices. It's just whether or not we see that we have those choices. So I didn't wait for the pandemic to be over, and I didn't wait for the timing to feel perfect because that was never going to happen. I trusted that investing in myself would allow me to be better no matter how messy the world was. I could be my best self. And that combination of tools, the self awareness, the hard earned experience continues to shape how I make my day to day decisions and approach, minute to minute, second to second.
Yeah. You really did a whole, you know, scanning, if you will, of yourself, right? A whole self analysis, self awareness, um, and be like you said, be right or be happy. I think that goes for a lot of relationships, work environment, marital, just all type friendships. To get over that, and as you're speaking too, I'm like mentally seeing a fork in the road, right? I have the awareness, which is the important part. I'm on that path, and then I can go left or right. Of do I want to continue to do what I'm doing, or do I want to essentially be better, for lack of better terms, and make a better conscious choice that's going to help me not only in this moment but going forward. And then, of course, as you know, continue to do that, not just one time, but that's very much the path that it sounds like that was on, especially in that moment when you were documenting your responses and you're in a high emotional octane moment with your boss, which no one likes to do. The air is probably super dry in the room. uh, no, that's real experience, right? So for those who are listening, this is a very good example of like where this can be used and where it's been applied. And you kind of actually took my next question, because when I was going to ask, walking into your ontological coaching, I guess before that example, you kind of tell me, or tell us rather, if you can kind of walk us through kind of what ontological coaching is, because for most people who have not encountered it, it can kind of sound academia, kind of a big word, right? Like, what does this word mean? Um, and for someone who's never, been in a room where this framework has been applied, what is it actually doing that, standard coaching or even like management training does not do?
Yeah, 100%. So ontological coaching, and it's funny, every time anyone looks at my resume or my LinkedIn profile, they're like, I had to Google it. uh,
Yes, literally, like, what is this? Yes.
it's really just a fancy way of saying it helps people notice how they show up in the world.
Yep.
And it gives them the space and some tools to change it if they want to. So, most coaching or management programs teach you what to do, the
Yep.
techniques, the frameworks. Ontological coaching asks something deeper. Who are you being when you do it?
Mm,
I'll let that land for a second.
yes.
It's really about helping people notice how they think, how they are feeling, and then how they're reacting. And then deciding, does that work for me or does it not work for me? If it doesn't, then I can choose to think or feel or react in a different way. So
Hmm.
I'll give you an example. A leader might think they're being calm and encouraging in a meeting.
Right.
Their tone or their body posture is communicating something very different, but they don't see it.
Hmm.
Ontological coaching helps you see yourself. I like to say, like, you're in the fishbowl, and then we pull you out of the fishbowl and you see the water you've been living in. You're like,
Yeah.
oh,
I see.
oh, do
That's
I
me.
want to live in that water or do I want to clean the fishbowl and put some new water in there?
Right.
So it gives you that choice. So the exercises that we went through during that 15-month program were designed to make you notice your own patterns in real time and then experimenting with new ways of responding. Because it's never about what you're doing is wrong. It's whether or not you feel it's working for you. Is it getting you what you want?
Mm,
So that's how I approached the difficult conversation with my boss during COVID was
yep.
how am I showing up? Like actually what does my body look like in this conversation? Am I coming out, like guns a-blazing or am I, because that makes a difference. And so
Right. Ace.
right, yeah. Do I have RBF, right?
Yeah.
And then really mastering the pause because that can shift things in an instant.
Hmm.
And then going through my Rolodex of different responses, choosing the one that aligns with my values rather than my fear.
Important.
And that was the difference. It didn't just teach me skills, it taught me how to become a person who just can make different decisions. It definitely builds relationships much, much stronger. And you lead with presence. So you lead with how you are showing up. You have a physical body, and we forget about that, right? We're always in our head, but kind of coming down a level and just getting into your body, it's powerful.
Yes.
And I use these principles in my one on ones with my employees. I want to help them notice how they're showing up, helping them see like what is your sort of automatic remote, day to day. And then it's a strategic questioning methodology. So it doesn't give them the answer, it gives them questions that then they think through. Answers come out of them from that. And there's been some research done with this type of methodology where accountability increases, conflicts are resolved faster, and really, I think ground level, the trust grows because when you trust someone, you're more likely to engage and be willing to have the back and forth.
Yeah.
It's not so at its core, it's not about being perfect, it's not about following a checklist. It's about being a better observer of yourself. And then once you see, taking responsibility for your impact and then making a different choice that aligns with whatever outcome that you want.
Yep. That's a good way to put a bow on it right there. For those who are listening, that's the perfect way. And it's important too. I think you said it, automatic, right? I think so many of us, I mean, myself included, at moments we operate automatically without even thinking, right? And it's that moment of like, okay, I can use this, apply this method, I can't even say the word, I'm stumbling on it,
Methodology.
methodology to use this and really just once again pause and figure out is this working for me, to your point, or is this not working for me? And you have that autonomy, that self, right, authorship, if you will, to actually make that choice. And then from that, having that self stability
Yeah.
to continue to do that. Like that was, as you were speaking, was a beautiful thing behind all of that. It's like you have the choice and you can change it.
Yes.
Um, and here's this framework, right, of operating within it day to day. And as I kind of move to my next question, because you briefly touched on it, you apply it to your staff, right? Your one on ones with your staff for accountability and behavior. Um, this question may sound like a very interviewee, job interview question, right? But if you can, right, if you can give me a moment, a specific maybe conversation, if you will, where you used it, and something that genuinely moved, that would have not been moved through a traditional, management or coaching approach.
Yeah, I've run into this a lot actually. So
Hmm.
one that sticks out happened with one of the therapists on my team. They were highly capable, type
Yes.
A, got things done, star player really. But there was tension with them and some other people on the team. And that caused them to withhold information,
Hmm.
which then was causing some delays in patient care. And so, in a traditional management approach, I might have given feedback, I might have
Correct.
reinforced expectations of the job and
Mm.
hoped that that was enough. But in a coaching conversation, I approached it differently. I asked this person questions to help them see what their behavior was doing with other people on the team, like how their reactions and their choices were affecting the other people. And not in a judgmental way, but pointing out what was actually happening and saying, what was your intention here? And does it match how you wanted to show up? And if it doesn't, then let's talk about that because maybe you
Yep.
just need to shift what you're doing to show up differently and then you get that different outcome. So we explored how that person was feeling. So we kind of dove into some emotional pieces, which no one really likes to talk about, but it does drive behavior, right?
Yeah.
It can open or close doors completely. And then based on the door that you have available to you, that's going to influence, which door you walk through. You only have one door available versus two, you walk through the one. If you had two, then you could choose which one you wanted to walk through. So it wasn't a lecture. I didn't make it about, it's good to reinforce expectations, but I felt like
Right.
that was really going to work with this person. This person knows what their job is. It was a conversation where they could notice themselves in the moment and decide, do I keep reacting out of habit? Do I need to be right here? Is that what my goal is? Or do I wanna change what I'm doing to see if that works better? And by the
Yep.
end of the conversation, they did adjust how they were showing up and took ownership and actually started to mentor some of their peers
Oh,
and
wow.
built the trust, and then they created their own workflow. I didn't have to give them that answer. And then the delay in patient care, it went away.
Right. Right. Magically went away.
Magically went away. And, I just got through doing 40 performance interviews, um,
Woo.
or performance reviews, sorry, not interviews.
Yeah.
And it's taxing, but in those, I made sure to create a goal with each person on getting them to be able to learn and embody how to notice themselves in a given moment, so that when they
Hmm.
run up against a situation, they don't knock on my door and say, "I need help solving this problem." I'll be like, "Okay, let's talk about what you did, how you're feeling
Yep.
about it, what's the story you have about it. Do we need to shift any of that? Is that going to make a difference? And then do you see it differently now?" And they walk away with their own answer. I really don't have to do a whole lot.
I know. I'm laughing my head, right? Because I go to therapy, and you mentioned a therapist on your staff, and it's the questions are very open ended, right? The
Hmm.
client, or I guess in this instance, right, uh, the therapist on staff is gonna get themselves to that end result, right? You're gonna, and you mentioned it earlier. You briefly touched on it, but like they're gonna naturally discover, identify,
Hmm.
right, pinpoint what is the reality. To your point, like, do you wanna, is this an alignment or is it not? And you're not really say forcing, but you're kind of this invisible hand guiding them to see what is actually here now. What is the presence that you're showing up in this moment?
Yeah.
Um, and do you want to change it?
Yeah.
Right? Do you want to change it? And in that instance, that's a great example.
Yeah.
that you I appreciate that. And for those who are listening, of that's exactly what happened, right? That's who, what, when, where, how are you feeling, what is this causing, right? All these open-ended questions to have them actually navigate that whole process and bring
Yeah.
the real emotions to the surface, right?
Yeah.
We're gonna have that no matter where you go to. But to your point, having that honest conversation that most people don't want to have, whether it's superior or not, right? And kind of that hierarchy of your work environment, um, it's valuable, man, and it's needed. So I commend you for doing the work you're doing and that example as well of like leading people to see a better outcome.
Well, I will say that there's a caveat to it because people have to give you permission to do this with them. And
Yes.
so if you don't have a good relationship or you haven't built the trust or taken the time to build the trust and they don't give you permission, you're not really going to get very far. So it's all very relational at the end of the day. I mean, I kind of think of almost every problem that I run into on a day-to-day basis at work, it stems from it's a relational thing.
Yep. Yep. Very
Mm.
much so. Yeah. Speaking of just your model, right? The ontological model and really what neuroscience and performance psychology are showing us about how actually people actually change. They're saying very similar things just from like very different, vantage points, right? When did that when did you discover rather that convergence and what did it do for how you what did it do for you and how you held the work?
Mhm. Yeah, so when I started to learn about ontological coaching and this whole methodology, what was fascinating to me was it's a simple little construct of 3 circles,
Mm-hmm.
and that's called your way of being. So everyone has that, right? So one circle is language. That's
Yep.
the words that we use, that's the stories we tell ourselves. We are interpretive beings. So what are we saying this means to us? The other one is emotions, which we can't get away from, despite that we want to, because they do drive our behavior. And then the third circle is our body, which again we don't pay enough attention to it, I think, in
You really
society.
don't.
And so those three things make up you. Those three things about me make up me. And so that is how we end up like the driving of the behavior. And then that gets you the results, positive or negative.
Yep.
And I think that that's been echoed by neuroscience, performance psychology, but from a different direction. So, neuroscience, in essence, says our brains literally wire habits and responses, and we can
Right.
rewire our brains, right, through practice, repetition, things like that. Performance psychology says your mindset and deliberate practice shape your performance.
Mm-hmm.
What I'll say is, I think coaching says your way of being, those three things, in the world is what drives your actions. And you have the choice to shift one or two or all three. You only have to shift one for the whole thing to morph into something else.
Right.
So I saw that play out when I was helping open the rehab hospital. Um, and it was completely new territory for everyone, including me. I'd never done that before. There was fear of failure. There
Oh
was
yeah.
there was some ambiguity about every decision. Did we all align on every decision? No, right? And there was this constant need for flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
So, using the coaching lens, I didn't just focus on the tasks that had to be done or getting things checked off the list that needed to be done. I focused on how I was showing up with everyone around me. And these were all new relationships, and I wanted those relationships to thrive. So that was important. And I think that approach is what made the difference. Even under pressure, I was able to be nimble, right?
Yep. Yep.
Adapt quickly, make decisions that aligned with the values of the company, and be able to support the team, not only mine, but also the leadership team just in a more grounded way. And so
Yeah.
when you shift the inside, the internal patterns, the external results have to follow. It's just that's how it happens. And it gave me confidence to hold the work differently. So I was able to really say, I want to invest into my team in doing this. My like pie in the sky goal is to bring this to healthcare. I don't know how to do
Yes.
that, but that's my pie in the sky goal because I just believe that it can change how we operate. And not that what we're doing is wrong, but there's still
Be
things
better.
hey, like this isn't working, or we still get stuck
Yeah,
here. And, like I was saying about the surveys that have the employee satisfaction surveys that we get every year, communication's always at the top of the list, no matter all the things that human resources does to try to help and support that. It's still always there. And I think we're trying to look at external things to shift it when we really need to be looking internally.
exactly, exactly. I'll be the first. I don't think this Monica is pie in the sky. I really don't. I know if someone's listening, they might, raise their hand too while they're listening or driving to this. But I agree. I think, to your point, it's not that it's wrong. It's just there's always a better way to do it, right? There's 4 ways to get downtown, right? This is another way to do it more effectively, at a higher level, and it's proven. So it's like, why not, try to do something a little bit different to get a better result or better output. I also want to touch really on what you said before that too, because I think it sounds like, in my mind, I'm kind of painting this picture of this two-way highway that's kind of a loop in a sense of you wanted this culture, right? These values, relationships, all these kind of keywords you're talking about. But as much as you were focusing on yourself, you were very much focused on the parts, the people, the processes, the systems, and this interchangeable two-way highway in my mind is like those two things needed to be together. They weren't separate, um, to excel and to have a great foundation of people and work and efficiency. So very much, it sounds like there is this, once again, self-awareness going back to that and the observation of like, I need to show up right better and use this system to then also help people as well, um, to actually live it and actually embody it. So like I said, once again, kudos to you of doing it and doing the work, right? Doing the work that we
Daily,
must, yeah,
daily.
daily, yeah, whether you wanted to or not, in reality. Quick pause here. If what Monica just shared about ontological coaching and looking at how we actually show up in our language, emotions, and body is hitting home, you don't have to just listen to it. You can work with her. Whether you're a leader trying to untangle a complex transition or just ready to invest in how you lead yourself, go to the link in the show notes, reach out to Monica directly, and mention code LifeIsPod10. Stop waiting for circumstances to be perfect. Go start that conversation. So speaking of the work, right, we're going to kind of turn the table here and actually talk about the CEO, right? The CEO program and stepping into that capacity, that room. Because yeah, you talked earlier when we got on, you're in that path, right? And very much deserve it just from as we've talked and just your experience. Honestly, I mean, you've done it, right? If anyone's going to look at your record, you've done it. It's not even a question. It's just a matter about when and where you fit best. But speaking of that CEO program, developmental program, if you can kind of tell us more about that, how does it work? How did you end up in it, and what the experience of being inside it has actually been like?
Yeah. So the company that I work for now has a CEO and training program. It is
Yes.
an executive level stretch program, essentially embedded into your day to day work.
Hmm.
So you continue leading your current responsibilities while also tackling different strategic projects, some cross functional decision making, and being able to be a part of the operations exposure at a senior level.
Yep.
It's the kind of work you usually only see once you're actually a CEO. So it's immersive and very high stakes. I
Yes.
joined because I realized that if I wanted to step into the CEO role, which I wasn't sure I wanted a couple of
Yeah.
years ago,
Yeah.
but it's morphed into that I had to give myself permission to do it. I had to raise my hand and say, I'm ready for this and hold that internally, even when the world didn't fully validate it. So
Mm.
I had to take, I had to like have courage and trust in
Yep.
myself that I could do it. And my current role gave me that opportunity. So my boss and current CEO, he's been so supportive since my original interview when I expressed interest. And he helped me get into the program. I've now completed it and I'm forever grateful to him. Inside the program, there are a couple of challenges that really stick out. One is showing up, embodying yourself as a CEO in front of your peers.
Yeah.
And that has not been easy. Like you'd think just because you're in the program that everyone should just see you as this. But no, you have to show up that way. You almost have to create that experience with other people for them to believe you, right? So leading with authority, leading with confidence, leading with clarity, even when it feels new and vulnerable. And the
Mm,
other is participating in something we call the operations call, where excuses don't exist. You own everything. You talk openly about what's going well and you
yes.
highlight the things that aren't going well. And that transparency can be really intimidating. You get questions.
Yes.
And
Yes.
you can't hide behind hierarchy or ambiguity. They will call you out. You have to confront the good, the bad,
Man,
and the messy. So, yeah.
that's like the boiler room. You're in it.
It's so funny you say that because actually one of my peers said that. He's like, "Man, it's hot in here."
Yeah. My camera's not working. Give me a second.
Yeah, right. So those moments are intense, they're humbling, and sometimes very uncomfortable, but they're exactly what make the experience transformational. It's not just about acquiring skills, it's about becoming the leader you need to be, integrating
Yeah.
all of your knowledge and all of that to show up as a CEO. So every day reinforces that the growth is messy, it's internal, it's ongoing, and to me, that is what truly prepares you for the CEO seat.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a couple thoughts I want to share. If I can keep them all in line here, but one is self-image. Like to your point, you really have to um, kind of use somewhat of a change your cybernetic set point to become that CEO. Like you have to see it before anyone else. Externally. Showing up in that moment, and I laugh too because you said all the things you have to do and all the stress, but I don't see no gray hairs, right? Your hair still looks fabulous. So I don't think from all the stress that you had to go through. And then yeah, like you said, just showing up, repeatedly showing up to morph into that person without, going back in that direction. So thank you for that explanation as well to show really kind of what that whole process, that whole gamut looks like when you're actually in it to become that CEO every day. And speaking too of you even said it. Speaking of having the courage to raise your hand, that takes a lot of boldness, right? A lot of confidence in yourself. Even like you said, even when maybe the external world may not feel like it, whether that's your own, um, to step into that seat. And I think too, most people think they want to be a CEO. They may say it inside, but they don't actually like, hey, I want to do this. And you've done that. What I guess my question for you there is like, what made you really, I guess, ready to say it out loud and step into that?
So for a long time, I assumed that leadership advancement was something that was handed to you.
Yes.
You've heard of the Peter Principle, right?
I have not. Can you maybe
It's
share?
essentially people who get promoted into positions, but they don't really have the experience or the skills to be in it.
Okay.
But
I know what you're saying.
sometimes you still get promoted.
Yes, yes, yes. I hear what you're saying now. Yes.
Um,
That happens all the
so,
time.
so yeah, it does. But so for me, I thought someone had to tap you on the shoulder and say, "You're ready."
Yes.
And I realized the only way to step into bigger responsibility was to give myself permission first. That
Hmm.
no one could do it for me. And no one was gonna walk into my office and say, "We're ready to give you a CEO job," right?
Right.
So part of what helped me um get there was the personal development work that I had done. So some of that was the ontological coaching. And another piece, I'm gonna call out a dear friend of mine who created this sort of personal development work called the break method.
Mm.
Her name is Busy Gold. She's brilliant and so innovative. But she guides people through something called a brain pattern mapping, which totally intrigued me. I was like, ooh,
Yep.
I want to know what my brain pattern is.
Yes.
And so I went through it and I did the pattern mapping and then I went through some of the work that she has created. And I learned something really eye opening about myself, that my brain pattern is rooted in instincts for safety and control. Go figure.
Hmm.
And you're like, "Oh, that sounds bad," right? But that pattern gives me a strong capacity for self-trust.
Yes.
Some brain patterns have a sort of a negative self-trust, but I actually have a very
Good.
high, sometimes potentially too high self-trust where I'm just like, "I'm gonna jump off the bridge and I'm gonna land. It's fine."
Right. What a good.
So, but I think that's essential in making decisions in ambiguous, high stakes situations, which ultimately I
Yeah.
think CEO has to do every day.
Yep.
Um, but it also means that I sometimes push forward even when I should pause and recalibrate. So that's what I've been learning over the last 8 years is sometimes you just gotta pause,
Mm-hmm.
like, and embrace the pause.
Yes.
Um, and this insight didn't come from a leadership book, even though I've read a ton of them. It came from mapping the internal architecture of my behavior. So, like, what are my automatics? Where do I naturally tend to go first in conflict?
Mm.
What emotion comes up first when I feel triggered, like those kinds of things. And it's
Yep.
different for everybody. They're similar across the board because we're all, human beings, but they're different for everyone. And so that work I felt integrated very seamlessly with the ontological coaching training. And so together, I think those gave me the confidence to name my ambition out loud. I believe in the power of declaring things. So I want to be, no, I am going to be a CEO, right?
Yes. I
So
love that.
when I interviewed for my current role, I actually discussed the possibility of pursuing this track with my CEO. He asked me, "Where do you want to be in, 3 to 5 years?" And before I could even think about it, it just came out of my mouth. I was like, I want your job." And he was like, "I can help you get there." It was
Okay.
so great. Like it just happened. And
Naturally.
so that conversation was an act of self permission in itself, saying, "I see this path. I'm willing to step into it." And here I am.
Yeah. I love there's a lot of undercurrent, a lot of under the surface building, right? As you've just really explained to us of like building up to that moment, identifying, like you said, triggers, habits, automatics, where you run to out of whether it's conflict or success, um, and having almost like those tools, right? Accessible, ready for yourself, and then saying, "Hey, I'm stepping into this. I'm going to use my superpowers, right, if you will, um, to become the person, the woman that I want to be in this role, in this field." And also along that too, I think you named it earlier, but I think it's great that you're naming, or maybe you're okay and accepting the messiness of what it takes to get there. That's something I want to highlight 'cause I feel like so many of us, and maybe those who are listening, you want to become a CEO or it doesn't matter, maybe just any type of position. We want to be polished, right? Of course, and get there perfectly untouched. But like to your point, it's messy, right? That boiler room call, it's like you're every day or whenever that is, and just you every day getting real world education, not just through leadership books, like you said, you're getting this real world experience. It's messy.
Mhm.
And you're able to balance, if you will, this gray area while also assessing yourself. It's not perfect. I guess maybe we can sum that up is what I'm getting at. It's not perfect, but it's a continual progression of refining a system to an end goal. So that's just a great experience that you're having and that you're able to share with how you were boldly to raise your hand that I am going to become a CEO. So awesome. Speaking of that development program, you said I think it runs maybe 5 to 6 months, or you're still in it now. Um,
No, we finished April 1st.
oh, so you perfect. So you just finished. Perfect. Um, I guess what has that maybe experience maybe required of you internally? Not maybe just in terms of like time and workload, but in terms of like maybe who you had become to complete it, which once again you kind of touched on a little bit, but maybe
Mhm.
from a different perspective.
Yeah, so honestly, this program has been a full-on stretch. I just had a conversation with my boss yesterday, um,
Yeah.
and he was like, "I get that this was a lot for you because I was less visible to my team."
Mm,
So, just time management was in and of itself a stretch, but not just in the work that you're doing, but in who you have to be while doing it. So we kind of highlighted
yep.
that a little bit. I'm leading my team. I actually lead two departments, an inpatient department and an outpatient department,
Correct.
managing the day-to-day operations, making sure that we're financially in the black. There's always a fire to put out when you're dealing with, human
Of
beings
course.
every day. And then also stepping into these CEO level assignments that we were given really forced me to show up differently every single day. Some days I knocked it out of the park, and other days I went home and said, I'll do that better tomorrow.
Right, right.
Um, and I'll say it again, the moment I think that hit hardest for me was being in those operations calls where there's just zero room for excuses. You have to name the good, the bad, the messy, and be okay sitting in that tension. And that's, speaking of it being hot, like the heat refines you, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's one piece. And then showing up as a CEO in front of your peers, which, it's the 80-20 rule. 80% you're going to have in your back pocket. The other 20% are going to want you to eat dirt. It's a vulnerable place. Like you don't win
Yeah.
everybody. Um,
Right. Right. Funny.
it's intimidating and it really pushes you to lead. Like I just really had to get back into that embodiment piece of being in my body, even how I walk
Mhm.
down the hallway. How am I walking down the hallway? What does that say about me? Because perception is reality. I think it can be
Yeah.
shifted, but in our world, it is right. So something just have to be mindful of and know that you do have some control over that. Internally, it was regulating myself, making those conscious choices every day. How do I want to show up today? Um, but honestly, there's still moments that I feel stretched to the limits.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the point, right? The program wasn't just teaching me new skills, it was transforming the me who could hold that kind of responsibility.
Yeah. Very deliberate, is what I get. Very deliberate, very tactical, but also honest. Right. Just showing up like I'm me. You're very ready, right? Like, hey, I'm coming at this. I don't know, maybe convicted or just prepared, but very much, um, I'm, learning throughout the process. Right. I'm going to learn and do the best I can today while being present, as
Yeah.
you said. Speaking of it, you ended April 1st.
Mhm.
I don't know if you're able to share what's kind of the next move, right? This is me just being curious. What's the next move?
Yeah.
What's the next, for Monica? What,
So I actually applied for a position within my company and I went through round 1 of interviews. That went really, really well.
yes.
Got some great feedback from people higher up. But I'm in a holding pattern for round 2. I don't know
Okay.
what round 2 is going to look like. I don't even know if round 2 is going to happen because there's some competition out there. There's people who are
Yeah.
CEOs that are probably wanting the role that I'm applying for. So I'm just using it as I'm staying positive. I'm going to keep the faith, but I'm also just using it as I'm going to almost like a practice, right? Like I'm going to
Yeah.
practice doing it. So I had the practice of interviewing for this position, and it was so funny because the man that I interviewed with, we talked for about 50 minutes, and a couple comments he made that I thought it was really funny. The first one he said was, "I don't normally talk for this long in these interviews," so I thought that was a win.
Yeah. Absolutely. Interesting.
And then the second thing he said was, "You're better in person than on paper." And I was like, "Huh."
Okay.
I like that, like,
I'll
let me
take it.
wow you in person, but it also was like, maybe I should look at my resume and
Maybe
make
I
sure
need to
that,
clean it.
that it's showing what I'm capable of
Yeah.
it was
But
really
no, that's good. Well, it tells you, hey, you obviously can articulate what you've done really well, and you know, verbally, it sounds obviously a lot better on paper. So, like you
they
said,
watch this. I do want the position very, very, very much.
oh yes, yeah, I'm gonna second that. So let's get on that process. And I appreciate that because I was honestly just curious, like, hey, what's kind of going on next?
No.
Um, speaking of that process, right? When you kind of sit where you're at right now, right on the edge of, call it one of the biggest professional steps of your career of getting to that mountain that you want to climb and accomplish, and you will. What does that feel like from the inside, right? Maybe not the polished version, but just kind of human to human, kind of the real version of like, what does that feel like to be on the cusp of like, hey, this can and soon eventually will be a
Yeah.
reality.
Yeah, it's not a matter of if, it's when.
Yeah, it's when.
I'll speak that. Sitting on the edge of this feels intense. It's a mix of pride, just I'm proud of
Yeah,
myself, excitement, and maybe a little bit of terror. Like, part of me wants to control every outcome, make everything perfect, manage all
yeah,
the variables. It's just how I'm wired.
yeah,
And then there's this other part that knows this is just about the journey and that I'm stepping into a version of myself that I haven't fully occupied yet, but I am excited. Um,
yes,
it's exciting to see how far I've come. The things that I've been able to do in my career, I'm very grateful for. The people that have helped me. I will speak of one boss who I just adore, and to this day, she's always someone who I speak about. Um, she was my boss when I worked at Pfizer, and people always say, like, "You worked for Pfizer?" I'm like, "Yeah, the actual Pfizer, the pharmaceutical
Yes.
company." Yes, I did. I started out as a physical therapist. They had a brilliant model of a gym in the building, and so their employees, when they needed therapy, they didn't have to leave work, take time. They just had to go
Mm.
downstairs to the gym, and then we did all the things. So
Yeah.
I just thought that was a brilliant model, like, saving time too. But when I went into the business side of it, I tell this story because I was a physical therapist, and then I applied for a medical communications manager position. I did not have a degree in communications. I had not worked in a business setting. I was a clinician,
Right, right.
but I had heard that they liked to promote from within. So I was like, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring.
Yeah, why
And I
not?
interviewed with this woman. Her name is Vera. Love you, Vera, if you're watching this. A staple in my life. When after we went through the interview, I remember her telling me, she was like, you did really well. I enjoyed your answers. Um, and I think the only reason that I got the job, because there were like 12 other candidates that had portfolios, and was because I wanted it the most. And that
Yes.
shone through. That was shining through all of my responses to her questions. She was like, "This girl is hungry and she's gonna do a good job."
Yep.
And that's kinda how I feel about this. Like, I've never done it before. I've seen it done. I've experienced pieces and, parts and pieces of it, but I want it. So,
Right. And they feel it.
yeah,
Yeah,
they
they
do.
feel it. So once again, we're just broadcasting just so you guys are listening. This is it.
Right.
She's coming. But that's honestly, I think that's what's gonna a great separator. All jokes aside, I think the experience with the knowledge and then the passion to be great, the passion to solve the issue and then be driven behind it is like, I think anyone who's on the other seat, right, listening to you or interviewing, right, they can respect that, they can honor that, and then to your point, they want someone in that position because you care and you're going to get it done or find a way to get it done, right? You said be resourceful when you have less and need to do more.
Right.
You'll find a way.
Sharpened through that, yeah.
Yeah, find a way. Before we get back to the conversation, Monica spent over a decade building in healthcare, navigating massive professional pivots, and doing the deep internal work. She is currently putting that entire blueprint into a book. And while it isn't fully released yet, she's opening a way for this community to get an early look. If you want to read the advanced chapters and help shape the conversation before it drops, go to the link in the show notes right now. Connect with Monica, tell her you heard her here, and get your name on the list for an early preview copy. Don't wait on this one. Real talk. How many times have you seen exactly where you want to go, clearly, and then talked yourself out of it before you even started? How many times have you committed to something, felt that initial surge of energy, and then watched yourself quietly sabotage it 2 weeks later? And how many times have you asked yourself, why can't I just trust myself to do the thing I already know I'm capable of? I've been there, and I've worked with enough people to know this isn't a discipline problem, it's a coherence problem. Your nervous system is interpreting growth as threat. Your identity is still tied to old versions of yourself. Your beliefs are running on outdated code. And no amount of willpower fixes that. That's why I built the Coherence Performance Method, a 7-module program rooted in neuroscience, system thinking, and real-world application. You'll learn how to regulate your nervous system so change feels safe, not scary, how to build stable identity that doesn't collapse when things get hard, how to reprogram limiting beliefs with evidence, not just positive thinking, how to make decisions from internal authority instead of external validation. This isn't theory, it's practice. Self-awareness, self-trust, self-leadership, self-authorship. That's the arc. If you're tired of cycling back to the same patterns, if you're ready to finally trust yourself the way you've been wanting to, go to the show notes and join the program. The Coherence Performance Method. Let's do this work together. So as we move forward here, right, I want to talk really about, right, you carrying, right, real weight, right? I asked you kind of give us the real version to my last question. It's kind of really your real version of your resilience in your own personal architecture of life, and what you're kind of going through as you're stepping through that leadership. Um, I know currently you said you're kind of navigating a personal season right now, right? Transitioning living. a significantly daily commute to work that you talked about offline, um, active litigation, which you don't have to talk about, but just more personal stuff, right? While also being in the final stretch, right now we're kind of waiting this limbo period of round two for CEO candidacy. Most people, as you said, would say this is too much, right? Especially all at once. There's a lot, right? You can hold a lot, right? People have high pain tolerance. You have a high, I don't know, business tolerance, if you will. What is that? What is actually keeping you grounded, like through all of it?
Yeah. So yeah, honestly, this past year has been like walking on walking on fire. I've had to move several times due to things completely out of my control. Um, I
Hmm.
am not someone who shows up as a victim in this life. So, it's sometimes just saying, I don't like the choices in front of me, but I have choice. So which one
Yes.
do I, which choice is the best of the worst situation, choices available to me? Um, I think what keeps me grounded is noticing that I do have control. We forget, we can even talk about things like our standards or,
Hmm.
like we create those and then we forget that if if they get moved, we've moved them
Yeah, like we were the ones. Yeah, we're
them
the culprit.
again. So,
Yes.
like, oh, I can't reach that. Well, you put it there so you can and you can move it again.
Yep.
And then being in this season of letting go of what I cannot control. My friend Busy she says it perfectly. She's like, controlled surrender. It is not easy.
Mm,
That's what I've been
yes.
living in is controlled surrender. Um, I lean on routines as much as possible and little small anchors. So I, get up and put my feet on the grass and do some grounding.
Yes. Yeah.
I take my puppy outside, her and I ground together. I just hired a personal trainer to
Okay.
me get into just a routine of exercise. I think moving is the key. It just
Yeah.
gets
Movement.
you. And then connecting with people that I trust. Community has become so important to me just in the last decade, but definitely in the last couple of years. When you have your small circle of people that have you no matter what, it truly makes a difference. So it's not about making the chaos disappear because the chaos is here
Yeah.
and I'm moving through it and I'm going to be fine on the other end of it. It's about holding space for it without letting it define me.
Hmm.
And that's what keeps me moving forward. I was telling a friend just this morning, I'm like, there's a lot of darts being thrown and I'm
Yes.
catching as many as I can. And the ones that I don't catch, I'm just, let them fly by. Maybe they'll come back around. I don't know. Um, and then I think the biggest thing for me is my faith.
Mm.
I've been a Christian my whole life, and it took me getting into adulthood where life got really messy.
Right. Life was lifing.
Life was, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just
Like,
finished that book, and at the very end, her book is called Life is Lifey, and I'm like, oh my god, that's perfect.
yeah.
That's
I'm living
perfect.
it.
It just sums it all up, right? Um, and just knowing that God can see what's on the other side of this, even if I can't see it, and trusting
Mhm.
it's not a cliff. There is a road, even though I can't see the road, and I'm just having faith that when I get there, it's going to make sense. Um,
Yeah.
and just having that internal peace. I don't think I've had peace a lot in my life, and something I've cultivated over the years, but it helps.
Yeah. Once again, like thanks for sharing too. Once again, I think once again, right, hearing your word is very much you have these systems in place. I think naturally, I don't know how maybe once again, right, going how you're wired, you naturally have these systems. Whether that's like you said, walking your dog, friends, you have all these outlets to help you through these moments, right? It's not that the chaos is going away. And I think that's an important thing that I have to learn too as an adult. Is you can walk through chaos. Like you can still be safe in chaos, which sounds like complete opposites, right? Doesn't make sense, but you can, right? And I think we have to learn as adults to do that because you have these systems in place. As you said, I think the coin word you said maybe controlled. I don't know,
Controlled surrender.
like
Not
controlled
my
surrender.
word. That's I can't take credit for it, but it resonates so deeply.
Yes, right. So that's like one piece. You have your systems and then also your faith. So it's like once again, you have all these things that are helping you get through this personal, right, architecture of your life through different seasons that we will experience. Whether it's personal life, relationships. So anyways, I just want to I guess, point that out that you've, I think, naturally put things in place to help you.
I try. My word for 2026 is discernment. I want to be a better discerner. I don't know if that's a word, but I think we
Right.
have that we have that in us, right? That internal knowing that we sometimes don't listen
Yep.
to.
Yep.
Mm. But there's this book, The Body Keeps the Score. Your body knows. Your body will tell you, and we should pay more attention to it. We don't, right? But we let
Oh,
our brains kind of go crazy, but your body will tell you, and we all have that inside of us. So that's my word for 2026, discernment.
discernment. Speaking of books, my therapist, right? She's a big reader. I need to get that book. That's like the third time I've heard it. Your body keeps the score. She's mentioned it. She throws books at me all the time, like you're talking about. I'm like, get a few of them, not all of them, but that's probably the one that now that you say that, I should probably get because it's real. I think, yeah, we don't pay attention to our bodies. We suppress it, we dismiss it, we neglect it, and then we wonder why. To your point, like you created this, so you can change it. You can move it. Um, Speaking of discernment, that's actually where I wanted to go next, right? You've talked about discernment, just obviously now, but also offline, and acceptance, right? As like a paired tools, right? Not opposites, but like complements. They're not antagonists, right? They're together. What did you have to learn about, acceptance specifically that changed how you've moved through hard seasons?
Yeah, acceptance has been one of the biggest lessons for me, more so this past year, but my instinct is to always fix or control or push through. And
Mm-hmm.
from an ontological perspective, acceptance isn't giving up, it isn't giving in, it isn't saying what happened is okay. It's seeing reality clearly as it is,
Yep.
noticing the boundaries of what I can and cannot change, and then deciding intentionally how to act from that point. Um, in ontological coaching, there is something called the moods of life chart. It sits in that emotion circle.
Mm-hmm.
And acceptance is one of the moods that we can live in that is the opposite of resentment.
Yes.
And I think we have all had, times in our lives, weeks, months, maybe even years of living in resentment over one thing or another.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what ontology has taught me is you have to physically put your body in position for the mood that you want. So, for the mood of acceptance, it's even keeled breathing.
Yes.
It's putting your feet, it's making them grounded, like put your feet down on the ground, not let them hang, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's having your body be loose versus tense. So, like just loosening your elbows, loosening your knees,
Yeah, that's all.
and softening your eyes, but still being alert. And I know that's a little technical. I wasn't sure if I was going to kind of go into all that, but I think
No,
it's
very
those
much.
little pieces where, if you had time to do an exercise, get into a really tense posture where you're forward, you're clenched, and you breathe really shallow, and notice how what that does for you. And then relax, ground yourself, open your body, and just notice how that feels and what comes to you in that posture versus the other one.
Yep.
We did that in our coaching program. We actually went through all the different emotions and the body postures, stepping into one and then stepping into another one. It's powerful. Um,
It sounds silly, but like as simple as what you just explained is like studied, it's proven, right? Like
mhm.
there's changes, right? Physiology in your body. I think there's a key word, I don't know the abbreviation, like HRV. So like heart rate, I forget.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But even things like that, like what you're explaining is like it works. And just yeah, your body posture. I think those are all things we forget. So as you were identifying, I even adjusted my shoulders. Like, wait a second. Let me make sure I'm a little loose where I'm sitting. But yeah, being going back to like just mindfulness, right? Being mindful of like all of those parts in your body is like it's vital. It's vital to have that change that you're looking for. So
Mhm.
yeah, great definitions too. Great definitions of acceptance. I think yeah, people feel like it's a weakness or you give up, but that's far from the case when you're talking about acceptance and what you explained. So very, very much true. I want to talk about right your significant, really kind of transition, really your career, like has had a significant career transition, right? From new institutions, right? New cities, new versions of your professional identity. What has, that accumulated experience of, letting go and rebuilding, right? Kind of taught you about who you actually are underneath, all of it.
Yeah, I've lived in 8 different states across the United States, which might
Wow.
seem a little bit nuts, but
Yeah.
what I bring to the table from that is I have worked in 8 different states. I've worked
Yep.
in hospitals in 8 different states and seen what works and what doesn't, and different cultures and different perspectives. I haven't had, one job where I've been there for 15 years and only been around the same people. I've experienced lots of versions of
Yeah.
people.
Different.
Um, so I say that in interviews too, because I think that's a difference that I can bring to the table of a different perspective that a lot of people don't have. Some do.
True.
Um, but one thing I've learned through all of it is that underneath all of the chaos, all the changes, all the differing of opinions and things, I stay the same. So the titles, the roles, the stress, the unpredictability, that's going to come and go. But what stays constant is my curiosity. I think that's a powerful thing to have. When you are curious, I'll go back to that moods of life chart.
Yes.
The end, there's 6 of them, and the 2 that are on the end, the bottom one is anxiety, which we all have. And then the opposite emotion of that is called a mood of wonder. And the
Mm,
way to get there is through curiosity. Like,
yep.
instead of saying, I don't know what's behind that bush, it might be a snake. You say, hmm, I wonder what's on the other side of that bush, even though it might
Yes.
be scary. Maybe what's on the other side of that bush is not a snake, but something that's going to be amazing for me. And if I
Correct.
never look, if I'm never curious about what's on the other side of that bush, then I might miss out on something really awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Not
that's an
easy.
example.
Not
Yes.
easy. Anxiety is I think, one of the most powerful emotions. It can be very debilitating, but it's essentially the fear of the unknown. Um, so instead of maybe having fear of the unknown, getting curious of the unknown, what possibilities lie on the other side of that curiosity?
Yeah. Very much a shift. Emotional, physical, just a
Hmm.
shift of like, I don't want to go, like you said, I don't want to go over that. I'm scared to, I wonder, I'm curious. And the
Hmm.
curiosity, right, breeds innovation. It breeds, new thinking, new ways. There's so much behind that door, right? Metaphorically, that, if you stay locked into your habits and your perceptions and all these fear, kind of paralyzing, if you will, ideologies and emotions, it's like you never know what's out there. And I
Yeah.
love that you say curiosity because I'm the same way. I'm very curious. I'm very much a risk taker. So having that curiosity, yes, you're still scared. Don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but there could be something good on the other side. Like you said, there could be something that is wonderful, right? That could be just tremendous for you or the people around you. So it's like the what if, what is around that corner. So love
Yeah.
that.
I don't want to live small.
No.
We have one life to live. And yes, we can be frozen in fear, but it's just not the life that I want to live. And I want everything that is meant for me.
Yes.
And I think that you have to kind of step out and say, okay, snake might be there. You know what? I'm just gonna
I'll
bring
dodge a
bring
snake.
the snake along.
Yeah. Yeah. Bring it along. Yeah. That's funny. But yeah, very much, claim it. And there's this very deterministic way within you, like if this is gonna be, it's up to me, right? Like I'm gonna make this choice. I'm gonna make this um difference to create something new in my life that I deserve and I want. So um yeah, you got it. Like I said, you're on the path. As we wrap up here too, we're gonna kind of hit the exit here soon. Um, Monica, you kind of spent over really a decade or longer kind of building in healthcare, right? Through pandemic, through personal transition, through relocation and reinvention, like you said, and you're stepping now into a CEO seat right now while carrying right heavier personal load than most people can manage. So kudos to you. But when you look at that, Monica, that whole entire arc, right? What do you know now about how a person actually builds and sustains themselves through real weight that you could not have known, at the beginning or prior to this experience?
Um,
Loaded question.
right, right. Looking back, I've realized that carrying yourself through all the ups and downs isn't about having it all figured
Mm-hmm.
out. We're never going to have it all figured out. It's about building some sort of internal foundation that can hold the weight when life throws everything at you. I think
Yes.
the word resilience, right? Um, I've carried the professional stuff, the hospitals, the teams, the programs. I've carried the personal stuff, moves, wanted and unwanted, illnesses, unexpected crises, losing loved
Yep.
ones. What's kept me going, my faith, and then waking up every morning and saying, today I'm going to show up better than yesterday. It's not some magical thing. It's just noticing what you can actually influence, letting go of what you can't, and making the conscious choice moment to moment.
Yes.
Honestly, I think just being okay that some things are completely out of your control. Going back to that controlled surrender concept,
Hard.
um, it's not easy, but sometimes necessary to get unstuck. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
in ontological coaching, and we briefly talked about this, but the exercise of physically moving from one space to another, like simply saying, take one step forward from the spot that you're in, and then notice what you see differently from that spot. It seems so simple, but
It's
it's
powerful.
powerful.
Yeah.
It's a new and different vantage point to see the world, being over here versus across the room. You're going to see something different. If you don't go to that spot, you're going to miss it.
Yeah.
Um, and how powerful could it be if all it took was one step, putting your body in just a slightly different space, if that could make all the difference in a possibility or opportunity that's in front of you that you couldn't see or notice before.
Yes.
I think that's like brain explode, right?
Yes.
At the start of my career, I thought if I just worked harder or if I knew more or got in the right position, everything would be fine. But what I really found out was staying grounded inside of myself, taking the intentional action. That's how you really carry the weight and keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Let's just say I get that CEO seat tomorrow. They call me up and they say, "We want you
Okay.
here." One of the first things that I think I would focus on, bringing this to healthcare, that's my dream, is
Yeah.
building leaders on my team who understand this concept of being a different observer of themselves. Like, that's step 1. In healthcare, especially, we spend so much time solving problems. We're responding to crises every day. There's a fire
Mhm.
out. But I want the leaders on my team to understand, how am I showing up today in all of that. So really just kind of getting, they call it self-awareness, but I like the phrase better, being a different observer of yourself. It's
Yeah,
not
that's
self-awareness. It's can you see yourself from the outside, essentially.
it puts you in a different seat. When you say it, it's a different perspective, a
Hmm.
different lens of like, oh, you actually have ownership in this observation of your own.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but everything you said, right? Like you're staying true to yourself, you're becoming grounded, um, and just being able to handle, right? I use the word sequence, but you're having all these factors on top of each other that allow you to remain you no matter what's going on, right? And then being able to your point, right? You get this position when you get it, knowing what to implement right away, whether that's 2 people on your team or in that leadership role or more, of course, you're gonna make sure that they understand this, they show up in the same way and have this tool set to operate from, to live from, and, just overall, improve, right, the experience and the culture. So,
Yeah.
beautiful answer there, thank you. For someone, speaking of healthcare, right? You're in that field. For someone listening right now, a leader in any field, who is doing the work, carrying the weight, and wondering if they have what it takes to step into that next version of themselves. what would you or what do you say to that person?
You already have it.
Mm.
It's not about being perfect. It's not about having all the answers. I've tried.
Right.
I'm like addicted to answers. Um, it's about how you're showing up, being a better observer of yourself, and making choices even when it's uncomfortable. Um, and trusting yourself, like having that self
Mhm.
trust that even if the choice that you make isn't the best choice, it's going to be okay. You can pivot. It's okay. Um, growth happens in the messy real life stuff, and you just got to lean into it. And
Yeah, that's
yeah, you'll find that version of you that's already there, waiting for you to show up and say, "I'm here."
yeah. Once again, going back to the messiness, like I think we live in a society that doesn't want to get in the mud, and very much feel like this whole right this podcast, you very much have done that. Like you got in it, you had the knowledge, right? You had the academics, right? The to your point, the answers, and now it's just like you got to get in it and embodying the messiness. I had a guest prior who like you're okay operating in the grayness, right? You got to find that other 20% of like, oh, okay, I'm kind of learning along the way, but that's the gold, right? That's what gives you and creates you and molds you and provides all the things that you want or think you want, by immersing yourself in it and being okay, literally, like you said, being okay in it and not beating yourself, right? Have some self compassion for yourself that hey, you're still figuring it out. So great answer. Once again, I hope someone's taking notes on that answer. Like I said, she'd have a lot of depth and a lot of value. Last two questions for you. Next question is where can people find you, right? So people are listening, where can they find you? Where can they connect with your work and stay in your world? Before you answer that though, I do want to make sure we do put in the show notes the diagram you talked about. I think it's those four emotions or eight emotions.
Oh, the moods of life part.
Yes. So I will put that in the show notes for those who are listening. I wanted to plug that in for you to answer that question of how folks connect with you and stay in your world.
Yeah. Well, LinkedIn is the easiest. I used to have a website. I don't have it anymore.
Yep.
But I am in the throes of writing a book.
Oh, hey, good. Congratulations.
Oh, yeah. It's funny. My therapist told me everyone has one podcast and one book at them. And I'm like, well, I'm doing both of those this year.
Yeah, might as well
Um,
start.
yeah. So I'm writing a book on it's going to be around the conversations that we have. It's going to
Yeah.
be leadership focused, healthcare focused, but really in any industry I think can glean some nuggets from it.
Mhm.
But um essentially being a better observer of yourself in conversation. Because I think most leadership problems, they aren't strategy problems. I'm not seeing how I am
Yeah.
being, right? So the book is really about helping people see themselves more clearly, understanding what conversation they're in, being able to diagnose what conversation you're in. Um, and if you're not in the right conversation, how do you shift and get into the right conversation? So I'm excited about it. I actually have my first recording session on Friday.
You should be. All that's valuable too. I love how you pinpointed, like, each, what I wanna say, maybe each phase of what you're in and what you need to be in to identify, and how do you then transition, right, cross over to that where you wanna get. Very, very much important. So, I congratulate you on that book. So good for you.
You too.
And also, we'll make sure to stay connected via LinkedIn, so people can follow you, follow that work, and follow your book. Before you eventually drop it. I know there's no dates yet, but when it does, we'll be there to support.
Yeah.
Last question is usually off the book, right? The podcast is the Life Is podcast. So, if those who've been listening, yourself too, Monica, this is really a part. If you could think about life, right? And if I asked, what life is to you, and if you fill in that last little tidbit or that phrase or word, what would you add in on the back end?
Well, like the book Life is Lifey says,
Yes.
life is messy. But the moment you can see it, then you can choose differently.
That is really powerful and real. Like, really, I think it's true. Like, life is messy,
Messy.
but once you can see it for what it is, like a windshield wiper. You can just swipe it off, get clear, right? And then create a better version, environment, world, perspective that you want to see. So I love that it's messy, but you can change it. So awesome. Well, other than that, Monica, I think we've had a phenomenal conversation. I hope those who are listening or watching, right, we'll be watching this soon, have enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it myself. It's great to see you once again.
Yes.
Um, just your knowledge and, like I said, your nuggets have been valuable, and I hope not only myself getting information, but those who are listening are able to digest it and apply it to their own world. So once again, just thank you. I appreciate your time and wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you.
Yes, you're very welcome. Well, I'll let you go from here and continue to do great things in the healthcare world. Take care. I met Monica in Bali. I remember thinking, this is someone who moves through the world with real intention, not performance, intention. This conversation confirmed everything I sensed then. Monica is not studying leadership from the outside. She is living it from the inside, through the academic rigor, through the operational experience, through the personal weight, through the CEO candidacy, through all of it, without waiting for the circumstances to be easier or the timing to be cleaner. She is proof that the internal architecture you build is what makes every external move possible. That is not a career story. That is a coherent story. And that is exactly what this show is about. Until next time, keep building. That's a wrap on today's episode of the Life Is podcast. If something in this conversation landed for you, a shift in perspective, a reminder, or something you needed to hear, don't let it stay there. Take it with you, put it to work. If you're ready to go deeper, I have tools built specifically for this journey, a self-discovery blueprint and a diagnostic designed to show you exactly where your foundation needs attention. Links are in the show notes. And if this episode added value, share it with someone who's building, leave a review, help us grow this community of intentional people doing real work. Remember, fulfillment isn't found, it's built. Life is art in motion, and you are the artist. Until next time, keep building.